Hey, hi, how are you? My name's Fel, and welcome back to Final Fantasy XIV. Today we're talking about Red Mage. Red Mage got very few changes going into Endwalker that changed the flow of the job, but the changes it did get were very nice quality of life changes. In this video we're going to be talking about the general basics of the job if you don't quite grasp them, and then go into the opener and rotation, and just discuss how the job functions in general. Let's get started. Alright, let's get started with how the basics of the job work, starting with the most important part of it, dual cast. Dual cast is you cast a spell, the next spell you cast will be an instant cast, plain and simple. So, cast for a cure here, dual cast. Next spell I hit, no cast time. That's the most basic of concepts for Red Mage, and it's very important to learning how to play the job properly. It's what allows you to cast spells like Thunder 3, Arrow 3, and Impact without having to deal with their massive 5-second cast times. So the base idea of Red Mage, please get familiar with it if you're not familiar with it yet. Now, since we're past the idea of dual casting, let's talk about how the black and white mana gauges work. As you cast spells that give you black mana, such as Thunder 3 or Thunder 2, you'll gain black mana. There's also Fire, but that's an entirely different thing we'll talk about in a second. For white mana, you would cast Arrow and Arrow 2. It's actually Arrow 3 now, we just got a new number. It might take me a while to get used to it. Those gain you white mana, and so does Stone. Let's talk about that now, though. Fire and Stone are spells that you get to cast when you get a proc off of Thunder 2, Thunder 3 and Arrow 3. There's a 50% chance when you hit a spell cast on either one of these spells that it will become the faster casting version. So when you hit Thunder 3, there's a chance you'll get a Fire proc. When you hit a Arrow 3, there's a chance you'll get a Stone proc. The idea being that while Thunder and Arrow are higher damaging spells, with greater mana gain as a part of them, as you can see, 380 potency, 6 mana gain, compared to the 330 potency, 5 mana gain of Stone and Fire, they are really, really long casts, and you have other things you want to cast first. Jolt is only 310 potency and only does both manas by 2. It's a spell you want to cast as little as possible, honestly. So, you'll want to be casting Fire as your fast cast to then hit your Thunders, or your Stone as your fast cast, hit your Arrows. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't have to go Fire into Thunder. You can go Fire into Arrow. However, you almost always want to be using a short cast to hit a long cast. There are times when you would have 2 procs up and a boss is going to leave, and you might want to get out both your procs because otherwise you're going to lose them, and you would rather not restart with a Jolt. However, there are ways to work around that, and on average, you use your short casts for your long casts to get the most amount of damage. Now, after that, idea is now cemented in your head. You gain mana depending on what spell you cast. You want to try and gain them evenly. You have plenty of leeway, but if one type of mana gets like 20 to 30 mana greater than the other type, you will drastically reduce the amount of mana you get of the other type. So say I had 75 black mana and 40 white mana, I would be getting much less white mana per cast. I believe the effect is halved. So in place of 6, I'd be getting 3. In place of 5, I'd be getting 2. It drastically lowers the rate at which you gain mana, and it's very important to avoid that, so try and keep them even, but not exactly even, because what we're going to go into now, your melee combo. So your melee combo, it will eat through your mana that you have built up, that's the whole point, and give you an enchanted and buffed version of the melee combo that you can see by default with, where's Riposte on here? There it is. With Riposte, Zverchow, and then Redoublement. The whole idea is that you gain 50-50 so that you can cast all 3 of them in a row at their enhanced versions. Now, since this is mostly an endgame guide, I'm just going to go straight into the 3 different finishers you get for the job. Flare, Holy, and then Scorch, and then Resolution. The whole idea being that when you finish your melee combo, you will get the option to use Flare or Holy. You want to use the one that corresponds to the amount of mana you have the least amount of. So right now, I have less white mana. If this is where my melee combo ended me, I would hit Holy, because it guarantees a proc if the black mana is higher than the white mana. And vice versa is true. If the mana values were flipped, I would rather hit for Flare to give me the guaranteed proc of Fire. After you hit either one of those, it'll go immediately into being able to cast Ver Scorch, as I like to call it, even though it's just Scorch. And then now our new capstone is Resolution. The whole idea of the job is build mana, cast melee, hit your 3 finishers for big damage. That's the general flow of the job, and that's how it works. Now that I've talked through all of that, because it's a relatively simple concept that takes a while to talk through, let's talk about your buffs and a few other buttons that you'll be able to push. So let's talk about a couple other buttons you have. You have your dash in Core, and you have your backflip out and displacement. They recently changed it now, so where displacement and engagement are the same potency, so don't use displacement if it's going to get you killed, because engagement is now the same amount of damage. You also have 2 buttons you can just push all the time nowadays, and Flesh and Contra 6. You basically push them off cooldown because they deal damage, and they are tied to nothing else in your kit. When you're in your rotation part and not doing your opener, you are just going to be slamming those buttons off of cooldown. I will say, our AoE combo, while it's as basic as it's ever been, with you hit Ver Thunder into Impact, Ver Arrow into Impact, repeat ad nauseum, you will now have Enchanted Moulinet, and now you can cast Enchanted Moulinet 3 times to get a proc of Ver Flare or Ver Holy, because of the way that our gauge changed. Now it is not actually finishing the melee combo that gives Ver Flare or Ver Holy, it is hitting 3 melee abilities in a row. So if you have 60 gauge of both mana types, hitting 3 Enchanted Moulinets will give you a proc of Ver Flare or Ver Holy, and then you'll be able to Scorch and Redoublement. All of these have been either changed to AoE or are AoE at base nowadays. Make sure you're using them in AoE, they are very powerful. That's out of the way, let's talk about party buffs, and let's talk about personal buffs. Start with the most simple of them all, Swift. If you don't have a proc of Ver Fire, Ver Stone, you can Swift cast Ver Thunder or Ver Arrow to try and get a proc, because that is more damage than casting Jolt into one of them. You also have Acceleration, which has been changed. It used to be the next 3 times you hit a stone or the next 3 times you hit a thunder or arrow, it would guarantee a proc. Now it just simply gives you instant cast on any of those abilities, and it will guarantee a proc. So Acceleration into Ver Thunder gives you a Ver Fire, Acceleration into Ver Arrow gives you a Ver Stone. It also works on Acceleration now, but it just buffs the potency by 50, but it means you can triple impact nowadays. So you get Acceleration, Impact, Swift Cast, Impact, for 3 just huge impact pops back to back to back inside of AoE, making your AoE very powerful. Now, let's talk about your last personal buff, which is a little weird, Manification. Do not hold Manification, because losing a use of it is worse than being able to always use Manification under party buffs. It's a little weird right now because Manification has a 110-second cooldown, but also because of the way that Manification works, in that it gives you 50 of each mana, you can use it off cooldown to use your melee combos, and then still be gaining enough mana out of it to use a full melee combo under your party buff, which is what we're getting to now, Embolden, which got changed drastically. Now it's just a 5% damage buff for yourself and a 5% damage buff for the party, with no drop-offs like it used to have. It's much better now. Something else that Red Mage has nowadays? Well, this isn't exactly new, but for some people it seems to be a new idea. You have a raise. And because of dual cast, you can raise all the time. Literally all the time. Even if the boss is gone, you can cast a Vercure into your Verraise. Because as I showed off earlier, casting Vercure triggers dual cast, which works on Verraise. Please don't forget about that. Don't be that Red Mage who's not resing the party when they can easily do it. We got another new button in Endwalker called Magic Barrier, which is 10% damage reduction to magic damage and magic damage only. Keep that in mind. And HP recovery has been increased by 5%. So Red Mage has gotten a lot of party utility nowadays. Their Embolden got changed and buffed. Their Magic Barrier is an incredible ability, very similar to Monk's Mantra, but it includes damage reduction. You have a raise as well. Like I said, Magnification, use it off cooldown. I'm going to reiterate that. We do have Enchanted Reprise still, but this ability is kind of trash nowadays because there's just so many better ways to move. And it's only 330 potency, which is as much as over fire, but it eats 5 of each mana, which is a lot when you only need 50 of each to do a melee combo. It's still a useful movement tool. You'll hit it and be able to move around with using it as an instant cast. However, it's kind of low on the list of priorities, and we have so many instant casts, it's kind of unnecessary. So next, let's talk about the opener and how that works. Whew, baby, this is going to be a long video. If you're just skipping to this part of the video, hi, welcome to this part of the video. We're talking about the opener. So, the current opener for Red Mage, which you will see in the gameplay that follows, is starting by hard casting for Thunder. Yes, that means you are casting for 5 seconds. Yes, that means if you're just doing random content and not in a fight where people will actually use a countdown, it makes it a little harder to do your opener properly. However, just keep in mind that this is based around the idea of you are able to cast for 5 seconds before the boss is pulled. So, it is pre-pull, you will hard cast for Thunder, then you will hit for Arrow 3. Then, you double weave Swift and Acceleration, which will make a lot more sense in a second. You hit your Thunder again, then you will use a Potion. This is the Potion spot. Then you will hit for Thunder again and double weave Magnification and Embolden. Are you getting why they spam for Thunder 3 times yet? Because after you use Magnification and Embolden, you use your melee combo. Very particularly, mind you, because it's Enchanted Enchanted Riposte, Weave Flesh, Enchanted Zreshao, Weave Contra 6, Enchanted Redoublement, Double Weave Core Engagement, Verholy, that's why you cast for Thunder 3 times, Double Weave Core Engagement, and then Scorch, and then Resolution. And then at the end, you will basically go for Fire into for Thunder, for Stone into for Arrow, and then if you have a proc, you will use it to go into for Thunder again and hit your flesh. And from there on, you are back into the standard idea of Red Mage. Build mana, use melee combo, hit Magnification off cooldown, use Acceleration to guarantee procs and instant casts as necessary. That's the basics of it. That's how Red Mage's opener works. It's fairly simple. It just has a lot more weaving than it used to because of having 2 stacks of core and engagement. Keep in mind, in your rotational portion, you want to make sure that you're using Flesh and Contra 6 essentially off cooldown because they are just free damage buttons. Please do not let them go to waste. Well, that's it. That's the video. Right after this will be the gameplay portion where you get to watch me hit a striking dummy and try and kill it before the timer runs out. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscribe if you want to see more stuff. Next up on the chopping block should be Sage, as far as videos go. So make sure you subscribe to catch that when it comes out immediately. For now, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.